Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations and welcome to the full moon in Scorpio forecast. And I'm really excited to be sharing with you what this video is about today. And this has been a really interesting full moon, to be honest, because there's quite a lot of energy that is taking place right now for us that is on some level really inspiring and in a sense like really captivating, and we are able to really feel the fulfillment of what it means to be alive. And then there's the other element that says, wow, confusion, wow, uncertainty, wow, anxiety, what is this all about? So with both of these energies really playing, or with these energies really playing both sides of this dynamic of what it means to be human, like the energy moving through us and how we're psychologically responding to that, makes it really interesting for me. And of course, there is quite a lot of actual things that are going on right now that are affecting this. For instance, the movement of Chiron into Aries. If you have a look at the chart over there, there's Chiron moving into Aries, 0 degrees. We have Uranus at 29 degrees Aries and about to make a shift into Taurus. We have the signs of the South Node and the North Node, which you can see over there. They're actually being made, well, like we want to call it squares, right? Or tension aspects. There's the moon and the sun squaring the nodes, right? There's the tension. Can you see it on the chart over there? Sorry, there we go. Can you see the tension on the chart with the square? And then the moon also squaring it as well. All right, this chart, although I must admit, is saying 26 degrees Libra on the 29th of April. Hold on. I need to do something here because is this correct? No, it's not. Like, I don't actually have the correct chart. Sorry that. Okay. I was wondering why that was the case. Let's press the refresh button on my screen over here just to resolve this issue. Okay, there we go. 9 degrees, 9 degrees. It's working. Woohoo, the squares are existing. Sorry, everybody. I'll edit that out a bit later. Okay, anyway. So we've got moon squaring the south node, sun squaring the south node, the sun squaring the north node, and the moon squaring the north node as well, right? So we've got this whole entire square of the sun and the moon and the nodes of the moon. We've got Chiron going into Aries. We've got Uranus about to enter Taurus, and we've got this new phase conjunction with Mars and Pluto. You know, we've got Saturn retrograde. There's a lot of activity sort of just roaming around, doing whatever they need to be doing, and we as human beings are interacting with this like, wow, inspiration, new direction, new beginnings. And yet at the same time, Saturn's retrograde, so the feeling of security and stability and a sort of like being able to initiate things within ourselves is kind of taken a little bit of a step back. And then we also have this whole entire complex of, again, like I said, the sun and the moon squaring the nodes. So lots and lots and lots and lots of cool stuff going on and huge changes taking place at the same time. So let's start off firstly with talking about the actual nature of the nodes of the moon, okay? When we observe the moon's nodes, I would like you to connect with the part of reality, or the part of your reality, or the mindset that this is not a linear function, okay? This is not a sort of, I'm going from one place to the other, okay? Because even though we as human beings operate in that sense, the soul's experiences and the growth experiences that we have a different theme to it, a different law to it. They work differently, okay? So when you take the moon's nodes, which is that over there and that over there, and you relate it to the emotional development of your life, okay? So let's break down the word emotional development and let's elaborate on this. Let's talk about how are you experiencing each of the situations that you have to deal with in your life on a day-to-day, month-to-month, week-to-week basis And how does each experience cultivate, grow, and trigger experiences that shapes your experience of life, that shapes your sense of identity to life, that shapes your, how do you orientate to what it means to be you? Think of the nodes as this developing awareness, okay, in each moment that is not linear, but yet in like operating in multiple ways, and how they are constantly being reshaped and changed and reformed each time you're engaging something. So I'd like to see that, or like to encourage everybody and inspire everybody that when looking at the moon's nodes in not only your natal chart, but also in this chart over here right now, where you can see the South Node in Aquarius and the North Node in Leo, that each of us is developing, right, or experiencing or cultivating or witnessing, however you wish to talk about it, as with the North Node in Leo, right, as this, how am I learning to recognize purpose in my life? How do I contemplate the nature of purpose? In fact, if I could encourage everybody to walk away from this video today doing a couple of things, one of that would be, instead of looking at the nodes of the moon in your chart and in this chart over here and saying, okay, Leo represents purpose and destiny, and so therefore I've got to go and do my purpose and destiny. I'd like you to contemplate the nature of purpose and destiny. I'd like you to contemplate the nature of what it means to live a life in which the validation of what feels special to you is an ongoing pursuit, is an ongoing experience. That in each moment, and in each experience, and in each event in your life is reflecting this to you, right? You're witnessing it, you're observing it, you're seeing it in different ways, you're seeing it in another, you're seeing it in yourself. Because ultimately, the wisdom or the essence of that archetype is evolving through us and with us. And we are a part of that journey, contributing to a deepening. So instead of becoming sort of like more mentally stimulated by the multiple words that are out there in the internet around what this means, contemplate your own emotional relationship to the essence of that, so that when you actually do understand astrology or understand the essence of an archetype in your own chart, you're developing a depth awareness to it. You're really connecting to it. You're bonding with it, and you're offering yourself awareness that arises from it, that can be articulated to other people, that can be connected to. And so when you observe your own astrology chart and in this one over here, and you're contemplating the nature of what that symbol could mean for you and how does it resonate with you, then you're in a sense allowing yourself to be a vehicle not only for sharing astrology in a way that's deeply individuated but informative, but not from the regurgitation of consistent words that are out there that we attach to and then say, okay, we've got to kind of arrange our sense of self in alignment with this word that has been assigned to this energy. Because I feel like it's the depth that we're missing, or that we're missing out on, when we're in that state of, and it's a very strong word and I don't want to use it like in this context, but this is what is available to me right now, which is regurgitation. It's like saying the same thing over and over again. So if I talk about Leo, and it's very interesting because I wanted to talk about this astrology full moon in a way where the essence and the message of the story was channeled through me. I wanted to show up doing it. I wanted to show up representing the energy in myself, so that I could not only share with you what I'm talking about and you could physically see it, but also to notice that there is no separation between this outside sort of abstract symbolic wheel that has a bunch of symbols on it and us. Because essentially we're reflecting ourselves back to each other, and we're trying to open up portals of awareness that exist within us as a way to discover, explore, and understand, right? Self-understanding in that sense, self-awareness in that way. If we contemplate the nature of North Node in Leo, it's an invitation for us to see where we are felt, embraced, and loved in a moment where that is done for ourselves and that is done with another person. Learning how to develop this role that is the human interaction. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, and this is a very brave statement, and I suspect that there are many other people out there that are going to argue with me on this one, and, you know, fair enough, to a certain degree, that's true. I personally believe that we haven't got this figured out in terms of what it means to be human. We still make mistakes, we still mess up, we still don't cultivate loving relationships where we can be better at it. We don't allow ourselves to truly acknowledge things within us that can be brought through for deeper authenticity. We're learning it. We're developing what it means to be in a relationship. We're developing what it means to be ourselves. We're developing the capacity to allow ourselves to be human without our judgments and our persecutions and all of this type of stuff. There's so much on us that we place on ourselves, these expectations, these roles, all these things that we play with us, that we place inside of ourselves. And we try to embody these experiences. So we're still on this process. We're developing it. So when we look at the North Node in Leo as an example, and we contemplate the essence of this energy, we see that there is other energies interplaying with it. For instance, Scorpio makes a natural square to Leo. So does Taurus make a natural square to Leo. Aquarius opposes, i.e. it makes an opposition to Leo. It's 180 degrees opposed, the sun. And Aquarius also squares Scorpio and squares Taurus. Just as Taurus opposes Scorpio. Do you see where I'm going with this? There's an interplay of dynamics that are occurring that doesn't just sit there doing nothing. It actually contributes to the overall development of the archetype that is Leo. I'm doing a series that is in its beginning phases at this point in time that I'm excited to share at some point when I've grounded the material into the physical form, talking about the mutable cross, Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, Sag, the fixed cross, which is what I shared with you right now with Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus, and Leo, and the cardinal signs, right, which is the Aries, the Libra, the Cancer, the Capricorn. And the intention here is to really open us up to seeing that we lack the depth when we want to go into our astrology charts, not because there's something wrong with us, it's because we've never opened ourselves up enough to actually explore what is occurring. So we try and figure out this intent, like we want to explore ourselves deeper, and yet we don't train ourselves to go deeper into it by understanding the core essence of the philosophy or the way that these things work. So another invitation in today's discussion is reflecting how Taurus, which is where the sun is right now, is all about sustainability. It's the essential path from scarcity to sustainability. It is the developing awareness where, for the first time, the baby recognizes I have needs in this physical form. And in order for my life to sustain, I need to have those needs met. Taurus. Try an experiment. Please don't go further than 10 seconds because I don't want to be reliable for your life. But I'd like you to hold your breath for as long as possible. And then as soon as you've stopped holding your breath, ask yourself the question, what would have happened if I had continued to keep on holding my breath until, right? We need some form of what we would say oxygen and all the other chemical balances that exist within here to go up our nose and in our mouth so that our respiratory system could operate and provide us with oxygen so that we can breathe, that we can exist. That is a fundamental, essential need for us to have. This is Taurus. Think about the notion of, or let me put it to you this way. Think about the process of when these needs are not being met and how we're interacting with it. What is our emotional connection to this? Do we feel as if, do we sort of make the statement, how are we going to live without it? What are we going to do? Is there panic? Inherent within the Scorpio, within the Taurus archetype is this emotional complex that says our needs need to be met. And there are basic needs, like for instance, shelter and food. And then there are more complex needs like spiritual aspirations. So Taurus goes from this process of allowing ourselves to be sustainable in a physical way, our bodies, to sustainability in the sense of spiritual sustainability. In other words, purpose and meaning. Now, in order for us to access purpose and meaning, there must be a need within the context of those needs that must be fulfilled, which is validation of those needs. And that's where Leo comes in. See? Leo is the necessity for validating those needs in order for life to move through you. And the different forms of life can be categorized here. You can talk about the physical essence of life, in other words, oxygen. You need to validate that, like I need oxygen. Until we go to spiritual sort of aspirations, which is feeling fulfilled, feeling purposeful. But if we're not purposeful, if we're not feeling fulfilled and purposeful in the highest spiritual, like in terms of like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if we're not at that top over there, we're not going to sort of like die. We're just going to feel unfulfilled, but we can still eat food and drink water and sleep under shelter, and the physical form would exist. It just depends on the layers of this. So here we have the sun in Taurus squaring the North Node in Leo, and it says, how do we each bring validation to these needs? How do we bring validation to our essential needs? And furthermore, how do we watch it in other people? How do we see how it works? What does it do? How does it bring us life force? See, if we had to take the context of this little story over here with this astrology, and we ask ourselves the question, what is purpose and meaning to you? And you observe the needs that are able to be validated along the path of purpose and fulfillment, you'll see that there are you'll see it for yourself, that in order to find that purpose, in order to find that fulfillment, that sense of this is my destiny, you will become aware of these needs that must be acted upon. So Scorpio comes along, Jupiter retrograde in Scorpio, the moon in Scorpio, and it's retrograde, and it shows up with the moon there squaring the nodes and says, are you ready to commit? Are you ready to allow yourself to osmose and merge in a Scorpionic way with the essence that is life force? So the sun and the moon squaring the North Node in Leo says, how are we in each moment allowing ourselves to commit and take part in the story that is your life? There are many layers to this experience that I can go on forever and a day talking about, in terms of at some point in your life, you had a relationship that was intimate. That relationship ended. Did you feel at any point in time that the experience of love was taken away from you, that you lost it? How did you feel when something that had so much meaning to you, that had so much love and fulfillment and joy that meant to you, when the cycle ended, Scorpio? Did you feel that life was moving through you? Did you feel that life was essentially pulsating through you? No. In fact, you actually felt the Aquarius archetype, which is the essential essence of detachment. The polarity to Leo, the polarity to the essence of allowing things to feel alive in you. And yet, ironically, the Aquarius archetype is the process of individuation. And I was talking to a student today, and I was saying to them that individuation is not the process, or it's not the identity that we have that makes us unique. There is a difference here. In Aquarius, when you take the needs of Taurus and you validate them at this most primal level, and you take the Leo archetype and you validate those needs that is rooted in a sense of fulfillment, a sense of purpose, and you link it to Scorpio that says, now I'm going to merge with that process. The Aquarius archetype binds it together and creates the context of what is the unique, unfolding path, direction that you resonate with, that you align with, that becomes what you're here to see, what you're here to experience, what is here to transform you, because essentially this whole entire fixed cross is transformation. Transformation in the sense that it opens us up to getting into the process and saying, are you ready for it, or you're just playing around? And Leo says, well, you will know this and you will be ready to commit to it if you are completely in your heart, if you feel that this is the case. Have you ever met somebody, and there are many, many examples of where the opposite of this is going to exist. So, but mostly in comedies or in dramas, but where somebody goes, we're going to get married. Committing to somebody is a process of Scorpio that says, let's get married, right? Do you think in the moment the heart is going, this is not the correct choice for me? The heart is going, I'm ready to make the commitment because I feel my heart being pulled towards this experience. So the Leo part says, what are you resonating with? Aquarius says, this is the individuation path. Like this is what, like whenever you're reading the texts from the Eastern philosophies and self-help books and it says, follow your heart, follow your joy. Well, what they mean, what we're trying to essentially talk about here is this fixed quadrant of Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius. Because the unfolding process is here to transform you. And transformation is the archetype linked with Scorpio and Aquarius and Leo and the Taurus archetype. So within the context of that, this chart says, what are we ready to transform? What is the new state of being that we're here to embody as this energy comes into our field of awareness? And going even deeper than that, let's take the process of the relationship that Mars and Venus, Mars and Pluto have to each other. Can you see here? Mars is at 22 degrees and Pluto's at 21. Now, in the last week, I think it was the 24th or 20, actually it was the 26th, I'm sorry. The 26th of April, Mars went in a new phase conjunction to Pluto. Now you must know, guys, that the growth process, so we have Pluto, which is unconscious evolving force, and you have Pluto, Mars, that says conscious action of that evolving force. So you can see what Mars and Pluto represents, right? Mars being, let's act it, let's move this, let's like consciously do that. And Pluto is saying, here's this unconscious force moving it in that direction, and it's just kind of like steering it along. So we have the evolutionary dynamics that is the essence of evolution moving through us right now. And they're literally made a conjunction on the 26th. So think back to what was occurring in your life on the 26th. The tense, intense emotion that's coming through that is bringing you life. That is saying, here we are at a new story. A new story is about to unfold for us. In fact, with this new phase conjunction, the energy is like literally as if you had Pluto transiting your first house, right? And the week leading up to this has been really sort of like culminating 2 years of evolutionary cycles that have been taking place for us, experiences, processing through imprinting, processing through what it meant to be self-actualized in the past. Now, here's the story. I hope everybody's following me. You know how I talked about the nodes, and I try to encourage us to see it as not linear, but more in the lines of pockets of experiences that, when put together, creates a sense of self that is the evolutionary sort of intention. And this overall arc. So when we look at Mars in its relationship to Pluto over the last 2 years, and that North Node has been in Leo, up until this point in time, we have essentially been cultivating and developing a North Node rooted in the old dynamics. Now, when I say old dynamics, I don't mean it in the sense like they're ancient. I mean it in the sense that whatever's transformed for you right now within the last 2 days is going to be a contributing factor to the way that that North Node's being developed in a way that was never done prior to these transformational states. New awarenesses, new feelings, new experiences that have arisen for you, new needs to commit. Okay. New phase relationship in Capricorn, a new structure, a new journey, a new sense of direction, a new path in which we are here to commit to. We are here to observe the needs of it. We are here to see its sustainability. We're here to allow the ongoing process to be there. But it's in Capricorn, and so is Saturn. And Saturn's retrograde, and it's talking, and it's going, I'm a little bit of vacation right now. So the retrograde points immediately to Uranus. Whenever Saturn's retrograde, it immediately points to Uranus. And here we have Uranus in the final degrees of Aries, right? Just about to sort of set its intentions for the transit into Taurus. And as we've gone from 2011, 2012, and Uranus going into Aries, and it's all of a sudden this intense breakthrough, right? The energy is gone, and we're all like out the gates, and Chiron is in Pisces, and here we are interacting with this energy in an intense way. New beginnings, new structures. Uranus is pulling out all of the stops and saying, this is not your real reality anymore. This is outdated. You're going to feel limited over here. And it's just pulling stuff. And we go through this intense, tumultuous ride over the last 7 years, trying to finding purpose and meaning and direction in a new way. And yeah, you have Uranus going into Taurus, and there's an invitation to slow down and recognize that it's stepping into this new direction, stepping into or responding to, however you choose to define it, into something that is not about, like Aries, gung-ho, but more along the lines of slow, sustainable, what are the needs? We've reached the point in which we understand what it is that we want to do. So for me, if you look behind me over here, or the area is completely new. I have literally gotten a new space to work with. And so my personal sort of like workspace has had a change, and I'm excited about how it's going to develop for me. But if I went and said, okay, new space, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, the energy will catch up to a point where it will just be exhaustible. So it's about, okay, right, so here's the direction. This is the platform. The platform is, here's this new space, here's these meanings to it. How can I cultivate sustainability through commitment and validating my purpose to allow my individuation to naturally unfold? The sun and the moon squaring the nodes, saying this is a karmic pattern of commitment and sustainability through slow developing work. Capricorn, Mars, Pluto, Saturn, Uranus going into Taurus. Chiron going into Aries is a really interesting thing because it won't stay there for long. But Chiron in Aries is really going to, in my opinion, bring us closer to healing the emotional and psychological dynamics that have plagued our awareness. That's a strong word. That have shadowed our awareness, in which we have felt a new direction occurring for us, a new sense of freedom, a new sense of purpose, a new sense of meaning. The last 7 years, Uranus has just blazed through Aries, creating so much space for us to allow a new direction to go into. But Chiron is going to go through that space right now, and it's going to invite us to observe what it's actually going to mean for us. What is this all going to mean for us? And that's where I feel like we're going. It's like now we're going to really get this opportunity to go, okay, where is this going and what is it going to do? What was the purpose of all of this stuff? What was the purpose of the realization that in 2014, certain things that you couldn't do anymore because you felt like it was emotionally destroying you, that you changed it radically, and now you're sitting in this position and you may be making YouTube videos, or you've decided to become a singer or something like that. That Chiron in Aries, as it moves through it, is going to really show us the essence of why this was taking place, in my opinion at least. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this message with you today. I really hope on some level that it inspired you, that it gave you an essence of not only just listening to a new moon or a full moon report, but also the opportunity to see that astrology is so much more deeper, so much more profound. And if we allow ourselves to access the depth in us first and cultivate an ongoing sense of who we are as consciousness, as the human race, and we try to begin slowly but surely breaking down this consistent regurgitation of language in astrology, but really contemplating it for ourselves and getting the truth within our bodies and feeling it within our bodies and saying, you know, the North Node in Leo for me showed up as how we can not see another person when we are blinded by our own light, or when we are deeply disempowered by experiences of childhood, that now as I'm an adult, I can give myself the freedom to be a kid without judgment. Because the complexity of the human being is so vast that it can be it's not as simple as just taking an archetype and saying, this is what it is, because each of us is so unique. And we want that, to bring it back. We want to bring that back to us. So that was my message. That was my change. It's like I have felt so inspired to really bring that home to everybody. I really, really want to I'm going to commit to that. I'm going to try my best to really show up in a way that inspires you to observe, like use this material to find yourself and to know yourself and to really break out of the shell of just using astrology as a way to go, there's many different things, and I don't want to say too much because there's a lot of, I can easily contradict myself, but the point you get the point on what I'm trying to talk about here. Okay. Right, guys, thank you for that. If you are wanting to stay on for the Q&A, I'm going to do that right now with the people from Patreon. And so if you would love to, you know, have some questions in our Q&A session, just come over to our Patreon page and check what we're doing out over there. We've got loads and loads of stuff. Myself and Jennifer are creating loads of, you know, material for us to digest and learn about. So, yeah, go check that out. In the description is a link, by the way, and I'll post it in the chat box as well. All right, so I'll be back with you in 1 second. Hey everybody. Okay, so we're going to do some Q&A, and I'm going to jump onto the message box here on Patreon. And so I have somebody that's asking, okay, they're writing, this full moon is square the nodal axis. What does this mean for those of us experiencing a nodal return? So they write their north node is at 10 degrees Leo. And further, what are the implications if we had natal planets that are square the nodes? Okay, so this is a really good question. What does it mean for us who are experiencing a nodal return, right? So how many of you that are watching this video are experiencing the north node of the astrology chart currently moving over your natal north node that's in Leo? This would be a question that would be applicable for yourself. So when we go through a nodal return, a squares to the nodes, as in your south node and north node are here, and then, you know, the nodes of the moon square your natal nodes through a transit. Or if you have your south node and the south node of your natal south node and the north node on your south node, you're going to be having this dynamic occur for you. Okay. So let's just say that one more time, because that's like a mouthful, right? What happens when you go through what is called a nodal return, which is when your natal nodes, this is where it is in your chart today. Okay. Sorry, not in your chart, but when it is in your natal chart, when the transiting nodes are conjunct that, they're moving on top of it. So the north node is in Leo and your north node is in Leo. Or if the north node is in Aquarius and your south node's in Aquarius, right? Or if the nodes are squaring it. The first thing that you've got to know is that around your life at this point in time, you're going to be having karmic dynamics come up for you. Okay, you're going to be dealing with some form of experiences that are linked with other lives and the experiences that are connected with those other lives. And it's a really beautiful invitation, in my opinion, to observe the depth of astrology here when you're having something like this, when you're having the nodes squaring your nodes, or a nodal return or a reverse nodal return. Because the experiences are going to run deep within yourself. Their experiences are going to resonate with you. And the essence of what is busy being transformed for you at this point in time are going to have an impact on the way that you're going to make decisions going further in life. Remember, I spoke about the nodes as this sense of development that is ongoing for us, right? And when we are making choices that are linked with, let's say, for instance, there is 3 weeks ago, right? You have your north node in Leo, and 3 weeks ago, you have an experience that shapes you, changes you, transforms you. In 3 weeks' time, as in going into the future, you're going to make certain decisions based on that event, and that is going to completely reshape the way that your north node shows up for you in your life, because it is an integration of an awareness or of an event that is essentially influencing the way that you define yourself through your truth, your cosmology. So when that gets filtered through the node, essentially your life is going to be changed through that, whether it be subtle or whether it be at a dramatic level. Essentially, your karmic destiny and path and the change that will be naturally undertaken for you right now is tremendous. It's also a very intense experience as well. So what happens, so we go further into the question. It says, what are the implications if we have natal planets that are square the nodes? So the extra layer that we want to add to this understanding that when the nodes, the transiting nodes, i.e. the transiting nodes of the moon, right, those little horseshoe shapes, when they are making connections to our natal nodes, and we have planets that are now at 90 degrees, i.e. that they're forming these tension aspects, these challenging sort of aspects to our nodal axis, it's simply that the archetype or the developing awareness that those planets represent are also going to be key factors in what is occurring for your life. So think of it as extra themes that are a part of your awareness that on some level you might not even be completely like acknowledging, because it's so natural to you. You've lived with those planets squaring your nodes for a long time. The karmic complex has already been part of your life. So in an essence, when you have planets squaring the nodes, they're going to mean something karmically. When the transiting nodes are making a conjunction or returning to your natal nodes, you're going to go through a period of your life in which the activation and the need for resolution regarding those nodes is going to be available. It's going to be there. So this is a time of either developing those nodes, or it's a time in which, or resolving them, or it's a time in which you're going to repeat the squares and find yourself still struggling with developing the ongoing self-identity that is needed for that node to essentially be impactful and influential in your life. So just to end that off over there, in 2016, I had the transiting nodes of the moon, which were in Virgo Pisces, square my natal nodes, which were in Gemini and Sagittarius. And during that period of time, I went through a huge, significant change within the way that I I responded to myself, understood the karmic complexity that my soul carries at the most intense level, and also knew, or not knew, but began to become aware of the deeper karmic dynamics that I carry with me, and impressions and imprinting that were a part of the story that is my soul's path, which again is not linear. It is operating through time and space because this is the physical form that we exist within. But when these events occur, especially when it's attaching to the nodes of the moon or Pluto, we're going to have very transformational, non-linear experiences that the mind is going to try and sort of like figure out. So to go deeper into it, says, I can't help pondering the significance of the sun and the moon illuminating the natal squares. For me, of course, this is happening for the soul. And these are Chiron and Lilith and Juno, respectively. Okay, so these are asteroids over here. So when we're looking at these asteroids, I recommend working with somebody that does deep asteroid work. My asteroid depth is there, but I wouldn't feel comfortable enough to give you a deeper analysis of it. So essentially, I would guide you to observe that when you have Chiron and you have Juno and Lilith part of your nodes, and they are, in a sense, being illuminated by the sun and the moon, you're going to be seeing exactly the thing that I'm talking about, which is when you go through a karmic experience like you're going through, and what I went through, I noticed that in my progressed chart, the moon was on top of my Mars and Venus, which was squaring my nodes. Jupiter was transiting over my Mars and Venus, which was squaring my nodes in Virgo in 2016. And the nodes of the moon were currently moving over my squares to the nodes as well in Virgo. So there's whole like layers upon layers of deep unconscious material that will be coming to the surface in order to be processed. So when you add things like the significance of the moon and the sun, you can absolutely know that there's something here around purpose and fulfillment, destiny, creativity, which are keywords that I'm using for the very thing that I spoke about early on, and the moon representing the emotional sense of self that is being digested, or not digested, because it sounds as if somebody's digesting the sense of self, because that would be funny, but the sense of identity that is being developed as you are cultivating new understanding of what is occurring in your life and what you're processing in your life. So what are you processing in your life? How is that being illuminated to you? And how is that reshaping the essential destiny line that is your nodal axis? And remember, this is contemplating for yourself because you're the one that has the story. I definitely can't show up. Nobody else can show up with that dynamic as well. So this is yours. And that's where the beautiful invitation is here. So with the transiting nodes returning to one's natal position, it seems like a whole lot of important going on. Correct. Exactly. So here's this beautiful thing of nodes being very influential in the reshaping and the rechanging of our sense of purpose and how we find our sense of purpose in our lives. Okay, so let's go over ahead, look. So I'm going to ask the chat over here in Google Chat. Does everybody find something out of what I just shared? Did you get something out of what I just shared from that person's question? So let me know in the chat box, by the way. Okay, so I'm going to refresh it over here, and let's see, we've got another question. Okay. So another question comes in from Monica. She says, I felt since Thursday and a few days before until this morning, when I finally faced the feeling, an anxiety on how to go ahead, how to relate to my new idea of me. So that's what I was talking about again, right in the beginning of this conversation, when just before I decided to realize that the chart was completely off by 2 days, was that there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of fear that can naturally materialize in this new direction because it's so new. It's like Pluto in a new phase to Mars. It's like it's coming up to a process of developing, and now the squares to the nodes are going, are you committing to this process? Are you not committing to this process? Are you fearful? And will you abandon it? This is this thing, like purpose and fulfillment comes through the commitment and the system and the recognition of the needs in that thing. So absolutely, even for me, anxiety and like what is going on, like how we're going to deal with this new energy that's moving through us right now, apart from channeling it into what gives us creative purpose. So for me, I have got a Saturn, I've got a couple of like MP3s that I want to do. I'm super excited about creating some MP3s for everybody to listen to. I have created this, or I've started creating this thing that's called the 12 archetypes, and looking at the transformational experience. Like, how does Aries go from anxiety or hesitance to courage, right? How does Scorpio go from disempowerment to empowerment? That's for me. So it's like this new direction. So you've really got to be able to allow yourself to invest in the creative process that is moving through you and channel it into something that's got form. Okay. So Monica's also talks about, she says, Mars is squaring her natal Mars, right? Yep. Last quarter. So something coming out of the new. Whenever you have Mars, whenever you have a planet squaring another planet, and in your aspects and phases, last quarter square means that the planet is literally traveled 260 degrees relative to the other one. Then we're dealing with something that is a crisis in consciousness. It's like, I'm breaking out of the old, and the new has not been developed yet because it's part of an internalized sense of self that is very individuated, when wanting to individuate. So when we have something like a planet squaring the node, or in Monica's case with Mars squaring her natal Mars in a last quarter, naturally she's going to have anxiety of like, how do I ground this into the form? Nobody's done it before, right? Also, you've got a full conjunct of your natal moon and Neptune squaring the nodes as well. Right, exactly. So karmically speaking, this is a big time for you, right? There's another person that has the squares to the nodes. Or should I say at least the transiting nodes squaring natal planets, like in Monica's case with Neptune and the moon. So of course, there's an absolute need here to recognize that on a deep emotional and spiritual level, your sense of self is being transformed as these events and experiences lead up. But of course, naturally, while you're going through it, nobody goes through an experience and right in the middle of the experience goes, I find complete clarity, or I understand what this is. No. So we've really got to allow ourselves to feel uncertain about it, and to feel a little bit lost in the process. Chiron and Aries, frozen courage. I like that. You talked about, you had an idea at the moment that you had a moment that you had felt paralyzed. This is still Monica talking. She realized that she still has some ideas that she needs to let go and to accept into the new completely. That is the mantra for everybody that's watching this video on this full moon. Surrender to the old and accept the new as a developing process that is not being unfolding in a way that the mind is never going to try and figure it out. Is going to try and figure out, but it's never going to get it right. So allow yourself to just be in the moment, watching what's unfolding and enjoying the magic that's occurring for you. And she talks about Chiron in Aries, frozen courage. Absolutely. We can be absolutely frozen. And like I said, the transformational experience of Aries is from hesitance to courage. Hesitance also leading to acting impulsively without the sense of really allowing yourself to clearly think about it. Which is, again, a paradoxical thing with Aries, because Aries is essentially impulsive. It doesn't want to think before it acts. Okay, So Natalia writes, she says, hi Simon and Jennifer, I don't have nodal return, but I have Venus square the North Node, and it's very difficult to find interpretations. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. So firstly, I will share with you, maybe it's not available at the moment, but there is a link on the internet of Venus square the nodes done on a radio show. I have Venus square the nodes in my natal chart. So again, just checking in with the chat over here, I'd really like to relish this question a little bit in the sense that I have this energy and I want to open up to the essence of what this can mean when you have a planet squaring your nodal axis. Just take some water before that. Whenever you have, like I mentioned before, whenever you have planets squaring the nodes, there is definitely an aspect of the emotional and psychological development within that archetype that you as a human being are embodying and imbuing and part of, that is still under development. It's not under development because there's something wrong with you. This is not under development because you have not been working at it. But it's more an essence of somewhere along the line in your life, nobody showed up showing you what it looks like in a healthy, committed, developing way. So the absence of what that looks like kind of reflects as a blind spot that keeps tripping you up, that ultimately leads you to not really fulfilling a sustainable, secure sense of identity. And you will notice that there's tension in your life because that missing element keeps on popping up in your life saying, hey, by the way, because there wasn't anybody that showed up in your early life environment, or nobody shows up in your life that really, or actually people show up in your life that has a healthy way in which that energy works, but because you're sort of blind to it on some level, we're not able to really fully embrace it into ourselves and develop it within ourselves and cultivate it within ourselves. We don't know where to start. So we keep falling into a gap. So when you have something like Venus squaring the nodal axis, depending on which sign it's in, of course, and all of these other factors, we're looking at somewhere in your early life environment, either mom or dad, or in the sort of like conditioning field, those needs were not met. You weren't able to see how those needs could be met in a healthy way. You weren't able to identify those emotional needs. And out of that becomes stories in your life through relationships and through the way that you operate within yourself, in which the absence of those needs and self-worth and value was not cultivated. And it can show up in many ways. It can be like in my case with Venus in the 8th house Virgo, and it shows up as two parents that struggle to recognize their own inner trauma regarding the persecutions, internalized messages of persecutions, of their own feeling of lack, their own feeling of inadequacy, their own feeling of not being good enough. And so their choices led to experiences that in my life, when I was growing up, I would look at and go, oh, this is what life looks like. This is what life looks like. This is what relationships look like. And because of that, we obviously receive that imprinting, and it becomes an essence of our personality. So we mirror that in our outside world. And when we mirror that in our outside world, it becomes a way in which we then essentially are manifesting this. So like in my case, I would materialize multiple experiences that would reinforce this dynamic. And yet at the same time, it'd be like, but why? Why is this happening? And the square invites us to contemplate the nature of this experience in our lives. The square asks us to check the tension and say, hold on, we're obviously having something pulling us here to try and work through. And because it's squaring the nodal axis, it's both part of the future, i.e. that it was part of the past. In a past lifetime or in other lifetimes, part of that square was very active. So with Venus squaring the nodes, it's unresolved needs that are not validated within yourself or unable to be met, or you show up with other people show up in which they can do that, and it triggers you to internally feel this lack within inside of yourself. Or let's say Venus is in Scorpio and you were 3 years old and Saturn transits over that natal Venus squaring a nodal axis in Scorpio, and you lose a parent, or your parents split apart, and their karmic story becomes the imprinting of how you observe your relationship to mom and dad. Maybe there was a need that was not fulfilled through dad, Saturn conjunct the natal Venus in Scorpio, that felt abandoned. And now you show up in a lifetime where you're trying to communicate your dreams and stuff, or be yourself, and you notice this unconscious pattern of abandonment that plays out. And that need to really come back within yourself and try to understand and explore. And actually, I would even go as far as to say, think of each square in your chart as an opportunity to be a child. This is really, really, really strange. But be a child on Christmas Day going, what is in this box? It's at least a positive attitude to have with something that can be intensely traumatic when opening up. So I hope that that kind of like asks that question. And like Jennifer was talking about, we've got a workshop that we're busy putting together at this stage that is on squares to the node. So if you would like to, take part in that over there, please make sure to, check out our newsletter, which is on our website, or come over to our Patreon page. That's where we release a lot of content as well, and Facebook page as well, which maybe we can link in that description there. Okay, and I'll be letting you guys know your videos as well. Okay, so we've got some more comments over here. I hope everybody's enjoying this so far. So Natalia also asked a question, Simon, the idea you just brought up around channeling frustration or anxiety is a real interesting topic. There are moments in my life of extreme upheaval, change, frustration, anxiety. Maybe that's got something to do with that Venus, where there's the need for self-sustainability that's promoting you to interact with when those experiences of upheaval or change are occurring. I would explore the Uranus in your chart. When do you know if you have to change your environment to lessen the frustration, leaving a job, relationship, or friendship, etc.? And when do you realize this is coming out outside of yourself, and you need to channel this frustrating energy into a positive way, and life will settle down around you? It's a very good question, to be honest. I'm not 110% sure how to answer that, but here's my intuitive hit. I will say, no, I don't actually know how to answer that question, to be honest. And I wonder if that's actually a part of the Venus square the nodes, of knowing the difference between something that's outside of yourself in terms of, well, nothing's really outside of yourself in the sense. We're all sort of, the soul's going to materialize as experiences that for you to process through. But where it's an internal process where you've got to acknowledge and recognize the needs that are either being met or not met during the circumstances in your life. Or are there outside circumstances, like in this case with Mars conjunct Pluto right now, the outside of the experience of Pluto conjunct Mars for everybody in the planet is deeply bringing up a lot of raw emotion that's coming from beneath us into our awareness, from our subconscious into our awareness, and says there's something huge and bigger happening. And we're feeling this, like the anxiety levels in the primal brain are freaking out because we're going like, we need to control this. What's occurring? The energy is so strong. So the essence here is, what do we do? How do we validate that experience for us? And how do we ground that material? So grounding, I would say, would be a very big part of interacting with this current new phase Mars-Pluto. Going to your question around this coming outside of yourself, the way I'm understanding it, and again, I could be completely off over here, and I'm really, really sorry if this is the case, and I'd be happy to kind of, discuss it further in terms of the comments. But when it's coming from outside of yourself, like in this Mars-Pluto check in with what is actually transforming within you. How are you relating to it? Like, you're freeing frustration, you're feeling the block. It's like, but that's Saturn as well. It's like there are certain boundaries and blocks that are sort of being formed with Saturn that are essentially saying, by the way, this was the past construction of sense of self that once held your life path, that now essentially is going to be transformed, and whatever symbolized empowerment on one level is now going to be symbolizing frustration and limitation right now. In fact, that is what the Saturn retrograde, in my opinion, is like. And I wrote it in the article where I talked about Saturn retrograde as this: we've defined ourselves up until a certain point with all the awareness and understanding that we've had, but now with this new kind of transformational energy occurring, what may seem as the path of whatever we're going might actually be completely limiting to us. And so what is being sort of forced, how are we being forced inward to reflect upon our relationship to it? And how then does that mature and develop and cultivate an inner change, i.e. a new perspective that leads to a way in which you're seeing something. So I think that there is no separation within the two. I just think that maybe the mind identifies it differently, and essentially it's gonna change you inwardly, whether it's coming from outside of yourself or whether it's coming from things that are your frustration towards the limitations by outside circumstances. It's like it's yin and yang. It's as above, so below. So that's where I'm going to leave that right now, because, like I said, to be completely honest, I feel like that's the capacity of me being able to answer that question. Sorry. But I'm happy to kind of contemplate it more and reflect on it more. Okay. Okay. So I'm noticing that my energy is starting to sort of like diminish at this point in time in terms of this. I'd like to say thank you to every single one of you that has showed up, not only in Patreon, but in Google. I really appreciate all of your attention. I love the fact that you sort of support Raising Vibrations in a way that sees its value. And I, as well as Jennifer, like really love the fact that we get this opportunity to work with this type of material for 2 or 3 days. You know, obviously we're consistently working on like understanding this deeper, and we're learning, and then we want to place it out into the world. So we've got loads of workshops that we're about to release. We're super excited about that. So for us to be able to be in a space to create that content and then share it with you so that your life gets empowered through that experience and helps you process the nature of what this is about. We're deeply grateful for that. So thank you so much for your attention. We love the fact that you're here with us. I really hope that you enjoyed this video today. If you're watching this after the fact, the way that you can know about this is I will be obviously doing these things every full moon in terms of the Q&A, as well as you know, the reports, and whenever there's a moment to kind of share inspiration in the moment, those other videos will exist. Otherwise, Patreon is another place that we exist within. And don't forget, if you're not signed up to our newsletter, either send us a PM here on Google if that's where you are, send us a PM if you're on Patreon, and on our Facebook. It's Raising Vibrations on Facebook. That's you'll see that our logo is the Vesica Pisces, because there is another Raising Vibrations on Facebook. And connect with us. You know, we're really excited to want to connect with you as well. So connection is a really important thing for us in terms of the way that we do our work and what we love. So I encourage you to do that, okay? All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching this. And if you love this, leave a like in the description, or in the sort of like YouTube like button. If you didn't, hit the dislike button and write in the comments below what your thoughts are. And other than that, have a wonderful week. Take care, everybody. Bye.